I'm Scott. I'm a Quiet Place fan.
Hi, I'm Senthil, and I'm a Bird Box fan.
So the two of us have decided, since we disagree, we're going to start watching as many horror movies as we can and come up with a new way of rate them. Come join us.
Hey, good afternoon, Simple. It's good to see you again.
Good afternoon, Scott. Good to see you too. So, what movie are we going to talk about today?
I mean, you can't even say it with a straight face, can you?
No, I can't. We're going to talk about the Greasy Strangler, and I had absolutely no idea what to expect at all when I first heard the names. I'm curious what your impressions were, and how did you run across this movie?
So again, this is one of those ones where, I'm looking for those micro horror films that are most often overlooked by other viewers, right? So this one came about because I had watched that Killer Rack, and Amazon said, hey, if you liked Killer Rack, then you should check out the Greasy Strangler. I have to say. So this film came out in 2016, and it was directed by Jim Hosking. But Simple, I cannot, there was plenty of interviews done with Jim, but I cannot find a budget for this film anywhere. And I've looked all over the place, not even a Kickstarter for this film. It's obviously a micro budget horror film.
Very much so. And, I did the same thing. I looked for the director as well as a writer, because I would love to talk to them to understand what they were trying to achieve. And what's interesting is I was trying to compare this against what we saw last week and how unusual and off the wall it was, Call Girl of Cthulhu. And, there's no one's ever going to top that. And the Greasy Strangler definitely did top it in quite a different way. It was disturbing, but not necessarily in the same sense that Call Girl of Cthulhu was.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know, did the director achieve the vision of the writer in the writer's opinion? Or is this a different interpretation based on the director's viewpoint? Because it's different.
What I will say is it was disturbing, very disturbing to watch. And not because there was no violence in this film. No. There was none. But I would say that 80% of this film is full frontal nudity with the worst prosthetics that you have ever seen. And there were several times where I just kind of was like, whoa. The scene that got me was the scene in front of the sink when they're talking with the lead lady. And she's fully naked and for the world to see. Now, mind you, all of this stuff was with prosthetics and everything else like that. You're not seeing the real person's genitalia or anything like that, but it was so over the top. And it was just Synthil. Now you informed me that, and I want you to talk a little bit about this, because basically what you're seeing is this creation. This person becomes the Greasy Strangler. And when I first saw it, I was like, holy cow, how are they doing the makeup for this? But you found out something simple.
Yeah, the appearance of the Greasy Strangler seems to be from a bodysuit. It was pretty convincing when I first saw the character. They used dark lighting. It's difficult to really tell. And then you see where the Greasy Strangler is trying to wash a very unique way of washing all the grease off. And it looks like the actors actually went through that experience. I'm shocked that it had to be painful. But it appears to be a bodysuit. And regarding the nudity, I was surprised at the amount of nudity that I saw given a small budget, and the willingness of the actors to bear it all in some extremely uncomfortable ways. There are some sex scenes that are also uncomfortable. So this had me uncomfortable from pretty much the beginning all the way to the end.
That's the thing is, and so where I had a difficult time with this was to me, this is one of those films that will become, if it doesn't just disappear, it'll become a cult classic like Troll 2, right? Because the acting, like we've talked about before, I think this director knew they had a micro budget and they just played into it, right? So the acting was very much played up. All of the scenes were very much played up. It actually felt to me many times that they weren't even following a script. They were just, it was ad-libbing and coming through it. I thought the premise was hilarious, that they were doing a walking tour of disco locations in LA and had no idea what they were talking about. So I found that to be rather humorous. But the movie itself, it was not, well, I guess it was horrifying because it was just so disturbing.
It was disturbing from the audience reaction, me being the audience. And I don't know if I understood the movie either. I didn't really connect. Not that any killer has to have any specific motivation, but I didn't understand the Greasy Strangler and what the character was all about. So I had to wonder how much of this was somewhat like Call of Cthulhu, where the shock factor is what they're going for.
Yeah.
The disturb factor versus trying to make sense.
Well, the other thing I thought they were trying to do was this very bizarre father-son dynamic that at the end of the movie, you actually get this where the two of them become buddies again. But throughout the entire movie, it is this completely aggravated relationship, right? And at the end, it's there. I'm with you, Cynthia. I think what was taking place in this film was trying to create that gross out factor, because there are several just gross out factor moments. And I'm going to throw one out there. The whole hot dog grease, it turned my stomach.
Not only did it turn my stomach too, but I had to wonder if they were going to try to show the actor actually eating the extremely greasy covered hot dog.
Oh,
and they took a creative approach to showing that. There are disturbing scenes related to the human body and the bodily functions. They're disturbing scenes. I would say the least disturbing part of the entire movie are the killing scenes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, because it's just like it happens, right? And it's going to be no surprise to anybody. He strangles people, right? He's the Greasy Strangler. Of course, the entire time I'm thinking, how the heck does he keep his hands around somebody's throat when he's a Greasy Strangler, right? Could you just kind of slip out of this thing and go? I would say the only gross part of it was what happens when he squeezes the neck, right? And then he eats these goodies that happen. But even that wasn't really disturbing.
Yeah, that aspect of it also I did not understand. Maybe we weren't supposed to. What he did after he killed his victims didn't make a lot of sense. It's a theme that he carries throughout the movie. I really have to give the three primary actors a lot of credit, because this had to be a very difficult script. It had to be a very difficult movie difficult characters to portray, and they did it in many ways straight. They played it straight, played very eccentric, weird characters straight. They weren't, I would compare it to, they weren't over the top in the sense of Velocipastor, kind of over the top, but it was over the top in terms of disturbance to the viewers. And I can see this becoming a cult favorite, but I would have to have several drinks before I watch this again.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I do want to call out the young lady who played the love interest between these two guys. I don't know how she did it. I got to be honest. There's certain scenes in that film, a bedroom scene where she makes this joke, and I laughed. And at the same time, I was like, that's just disgusting. But she pulls it off, right? So she pulls off this bizarre dynamic between a father and a son. And I don't know how she did it.
Yeah, which is why I admire her and the other two leads who did a great job. Even the cameos were well done, because they're strange characters. There is no pseudo normal in the traditional sense character in any of this. They're all very unique in their own way. Would you recommend this movie to horror fans, or let's start with family members and then let's go to horror fans? Would you recommend it in either case?
Hell no to no family members.
No.
I couldn't. There's no way. There was more frontal nudity than a Games of Thrones episode. Would I recommend this to other horror people? Yes, I probably would. And here's why, is because it was disgusting. And it was off-putting. And it was uncomfortable at times to watch. And for me, horror doesn't have to be all blood and guts. We've talked about this, Synthel. Sometimes it is just watching something that is so uncomfortable, it makes you squirm in your chair, or look down at your phone to go, I don't want to see this at this moment. So yeah, would I have somebody watch this? Yes. Would they hate me afterwards? Probably. But I would. How about you?
Yeah, there's no way that I would ever ask any of my family members to watch this. I think they would last maybe 5 minutes in before they never spoke to me again. Horror fans, you definitely have to have a very open, unique perspective towards horror, which is that I think you used the word uncomfortable, and that's what I think the core. We've talked about this in previous episodes. If a horror movie can make you feel uncomfortable in your own skin, uncomfortable to watch, I think that's the classic definition of horror. Talked about the fact that there have been some well-known reviewers of this movie.
Yes, James Franco being one of them. This was a movie that was backed by Elijah Wood. It's won awards, Synthel. So this thing, this movie actually won a few awards. It was also at South by Southwest. It was featured there. So this isn't one of those films that just kind of got made and thrown up on Amazon Prime. No, it actually had some pretty, good sized backing from well-known people. And that's what makes it so freaking bizarre. All right, Synthel. Hey, until next week, take it easy.
You too. Talk to you later.